Hello everybody, this is Mr. Lawback. In this video, we are going to go over the Enlightenment. So we're going to talk about the context for the Enlightenment philosophies, Deism, the Enlightenment and slavery, and the impact of the Enlightenment in the British colonies. So let's start with context for the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment was an 18th century or 1700s intellectual movement led by a group of English and French thinkers and writers. At first, the Atlantic Ocean posed a formidable barrier that hindered communication between England and her North American colonies. However, as the frequency of transatlantic crossings increased, ships carried more than just goods and people. They also carried a flow of information that included pamphlets and letters written by leading Enlightenment figures. Enlightened leaders formed a cosmopolitan republic of letters that included colonial leaders such as Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson. So what exactly was the Enlightenment and who were their thinkers? Enlightened thinkers rejected superstition, bigotry, and intolerance. They stressed instead humans' ability to become educated and to use reason to understand nature and improve society. Enlightened thinkers believed that reason could be used to discover laws of economics and government that would improve society and make progress inevitable. When we think about the Enlightenment, one of the key individuals we should think of is John Locke. Enlightened thinkers accepted Locke's argument that every person was entitled to enjoy natural rights that included life, liberty, and property, which later Thomas Jefferson would use in the Declaration of Independence: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The doctrine of natural rights implied a right to change the government that failed to protect persons' life, liberty, and property. So not only could people revolt against an unjust government, but they were morally obligated to do so. John Locke's essay, A Second Treatise of Government of 1690, outlined a lot of these philosophies. Under feudalism, social relationships were considered hierarchical and static. Likewise, under the Navigation Acts, the relationship between the colonies and Great Britain was a static one. In contrast, Enlightenment thinkers such as John Locke viewed static relationships as inherently unnatural, and therefore they advocated individual political rights, which in turn would lead, at least in theory, to economic and social mobility. In John Locke's The Social Contract theory, he argued that the only legitimate government is when the people agree to be governed, and that had to take place in the form of a social contract. Now let's talk about Deism. Deism is the ideology that natural laws should rule and God does exist, but God also gave people free will. Keep in mind that this really ran contrary to many of the Christian beliefs of the time. So while enlightened thinkers argued that liberty was a natural human right and that reason and scientific knowledge, not the state or the church, were responsible for human progress, many enlightened thinkers provided a rationale for slavery based on race, and that included Thomas Jefferson. So in addition to political philosophies, the Enlightenment helped combat the excesses of church, establish science as a source of knowledge, and defend human rights against tyranny. It also gave us modern schooling, medicine, and much more. So enlightened thinkers like John Locke and Thomas Jefferson, they not only spoke of changes to the government, but to other aspects of life as well. Now, what was the impact of the Enlightenment on the British colonies? So much of what happened during the Enlightenment is very evident in the Declaration of Independence and the colonists' plight to want freedom from what they saw as a tyrannical monarch. It goes without saying that the Enlightenment philosophies were very influential on the founders of the United States. Now let's talk about how the Glorious Revolution relates to the Enlightenment. The Glorious Revolution, also called the Revolution of 1688 and the Bloodless Revolution, took place from 1688 to 1689 in England. It resulted in the ascension of Mary II and her husband, William III, the Prince of Orange, to the monarch of Britain. The event ultimately changed how England was governed, giving Parliament more power over the monarchy and planting seeds for the beginning of a political democracy and a constitutional monarch. The government of England, because of the Glorious Revolution, would be changed forever in terms of power structure. The Glorious Revolution helped lead to the Enlightenment as both desired improved availability in European society of natural rights by implementing the enlightened ideal of liberty. The Enlightenment also had influence on the Great Awakening, which was happening at the same time in the British colonies. The Enlightenment and the Great Awakening shared many ideas and helped to shape a unique American philosophy.